All right, and we are due for our first interview. If you missed the introduction, just forward, backpedal, kidogo tu, and then you'll catch up with the intro. But in this first conversation, we're going to delve into inspiring stories and majorly focusing on a human being. What are the facets and structures and experiences and events, especially in your environment, that shape your life, and especially when it comes to being in the moment called right now, matters to do with your mental health, and that includes again events that again sometimes traumatize you. How do you navigate through that actually? And because we are speaking of life and experiences and things that structure and shape you, we are speaking to a counseling, a therapist and coach, and that is Faith Muhonja. She's going to take us through as well. She's rather a mental health and self-care expert, helping people to walk through the journey of mindfulness. And that again has to do with trauma, from PTSD to drug addiction and general life traumas. And good morning to you, Faith. Great to meet you.
Good morning.
Yeah, great
Pleasure to meet you.
All right, so I want us to delve in. Maybe we can start from the angle of when it comes to the human life in general, from a professional point of view in what you do. What do you think are the major, maybe let me rephrase, what is ailing human beings in terms of their general life growth?
I think the basic thing is usually self-limiting beliefs, because most people are actually held back from becoming fully who they can be because of beliefs that maybe they have acquired during their developments, probably even starting from childhood.
Right.
And maybe the life experiences they went through. And it's so interesting that when we are young, we actually believe that we can do anything, but the more we grow, we start holding back and not believing in ourselves as much, you know.
Wow, that's interesting. So what is this self-belief and the confidence, you know, as you grow older? Because you mentioned when you're young, actually it's very true, you want to be a doctor, you want to be an engineer, you want to fly. Yeah, but the more you grow older, the more you become constricted and, you know, insecure. I believe,
actually.
And fearful.
Yeah, because, you know, I think the more a person grows and you face the reality of life, and then you start looking at yourself through the lenses of maybe the world, because the world will really make you shrink, you know, in so many ways. And your interaction with other people, probably you start comparing yourself with other people and feeling like maybe they are better than you in one way or the other. And then you grow up and one day you can't even recognize yourself when you look at yourself in the mirror.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's the major thing that really ails a lot of us. Because if you look at yourself when you were younger and right now, there are some things that, you know, when we are younger, we actually want to reach the skies. But the more you grow up, your idea of the world changes and the way you view yourself. Yeah, and then it ends up holding you back from becoming so many things you have the potential to be. Yeah. Right.
Maybe you can still stay there on childhood, because I understand, I think, is it a philosophy by, could have been Oprah, or maybe I read it in one of the inspirational books that says we are a product of who and where we come from, but life structures the experiences and determines how we become or how we be in life as we grow. So maybe in terms of experiences that we go through as, you know, young children, now maybe we can shift the angle to trauma. How does trauma develop? And maybe what are the experiences that would happen in someone's life as a child that could, I'd say could feature or could potentially start spilling over or manifesting in the adult years? And how do you even solve that? Because I can only imagine now going back to the child, you're 45 and we have to travel back to that child and solve that issue that happened at 6 or 10 or 12, so that your life begins to flow well at 45. Please to take us through that.
You know, it's so interesting that most psychologists actually have come up with theories going back to like the first 6 years of a person's life. Like they make or break you. So during the first 6 years, if a person goes through a traumatic experience, and you know, at that time as a young child, you will probably push it, like you will suppress it. So it will go to your unconscious mind. So growing up, you start behaving in certain ways or responding in certain ways to certain situations without really understanding why. And yet it's because of something that happened when you were younger, probably even after the 6 years. But any period that a child is young, that is it's a critical stage. Because whatever you go through as a child has the capacity to really break you as a person. So you have asked some specific experiences. Let's say a child goes through sexual molestation. Because nowadays it's not only girls who get molested as children, also boys get molested. So as a child, if you go through sexual molestation, when you grow up, you'll realize that your relations with the opposite gender is hugely affected. And you might not really understand, because sometimes you know, you are not able to really recall whatever happened when you were younger. So you'll be struggling with connecting with people, and probably after even connecting with them, you find yourself pushing them away. Or even in the case that you are lucky enough to get into marriage, you will end up struggling with the sexual parts of marriage. And it's because of this thing that's happened when you were a child. There's
so
also...
how do you, so before you proceed, maybe just to stop there, how do you solve that for a molested person? Let's say they're even watching, or anyone who's gone through such, they're 45 or even heading towards, you know, their mid-50s, and that issue is still festering and spilling over. Where do you begin to address it?
I think for most people, it's usually advisable, if you have tried dealing with this thing on your own and you have not been able, it's more advised to seek a professional for help. Because you know, you might not really understand what is happening in your life. So when you get to sit down with a therapist, and because when you come to me, the first thing I'll start is from your childhood, so that I can trace the roots of what is happening in your life at the moment. So for a person struggling, it is recommended you see a professional so that they can pinpoint what exactly is happening. And then from there, the first thing is usually to come to acceptance of what really happened, because for many people it's usually hard. And of course, after you accept it, it will be easier to talk about it with other people. So you can confide in maybe another friend or a family member or even a spouse. It gets easier even as you talk about it, because in therapy we usually believe one way of healing is by talking about these things.
And I believe it takes a lot of internal grit and courage and bravery to, you know, master a broken part of self and be able to channel it out verbally.
It does. It does. It's never easy, because even the first step of actually seeking help on its own, it's such a big milestone. It's a huge milestone, because not so many people are able to get there. So talking about whatever is ailing you as a person, I believe it really takes a lot of mastery of courage, you know.
But when you look at such issues, especially now you've mentioned molestation, and I believe there's so many other traumatizing events as well that include around grief, even loss. There's a friend of mine who I think she struggles with. She explained it to me because she also sought services of another professional. She says she grieves when friends disconnect from her. Like for her, it's like a death experience when somebody, you know, disconnects from her. And I was telling her, hey, you view it, that's serious. For her, she believes, because her mom, I think she was telling me her mom at some point abandoned, you know, them while they were children, but the mom gave reasons why she had to go their separate ways, and then dad died at some point. So, you know, picking those experiences as a child, and when she was saying when she spoke to a professional, she was told that's grief all along. So you always see things experiences, a death experience, even losing a job, you're like, it's happened to me again, the way I lost dad, the way mom rejected me. So that was deep. And I was like, now, for adults and let's say even teenagers and Gen Zs at large, let's use Gen Z, because Gen Z can even be a 45-year-old. How do you start breaking such issues down to a person who is not a professional, and maybe find some sort of, let's say, reprieve? Because I believe not everyone has the mindset of seeking help from you. There's those that go to friends, there's those that go to church or religious leaders, and those who are lucky and informed or meet even such a conversation, they might be pulled towards seeking professional help.
Yeah. So I think you are asking from a point of a person who is not a professional, being possible? Able to handle maybe a grieving person.
Friend who can carry your burden. I think it's called carrying each other's burden.
I think at this age we are past, like we have come a long way from where people used to be maybe shamed for grieving or going through certain life experiences. Because I think if it was a long time ago, and someone presented such a thing to maybe another person, the way your friend presented it to you, probably angeambiwa mbona ko too emotional or something, you know, like, and she would never be able to express it again to another person. But you have come to a place where...
Is that another trauma again that you're adding? If you're shut down from saying what you want to do, it's another trauma, right?
It is. I think I'll get to it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think for a person who is not a professional, maybe you're a friend or you're a family member or a spouse, it's important to come to a place where we give a listening ear to these people when they come to us. Without judgments, because when you start judging a person's emotions, they shut down almost instantly. And so, you know, one way of actually encouraging a person to open up is by giving them a listening ear and making them feel validated without any judgment.
Because I think there's even memes that says men don't need validation, men need
money, and it's
men
so
need
sad.
To suffer and rejection so that they become stronger.
It's actually sad. Okay, I view it as a really sad thing, because you know, men go through so much, and most times they actually suppress whatever they are feeling. And I think that's why we are in an age where suicide has gone up, like the rates at which men are committing suicide, because they feel they can't open up because of how society perceives them. Because I believe men are human beings. And it's okay for a man to also feel the same way a woman feels. Because I think even in men there's that aspect of emotionality. So
in fact, for me, I believe men are the most emotional people ever. It's just that they hide it.
They hide it
in a structure. They call it stunting and fronting. You put up this face
and masking.
Masking. Exactly.
Actually, men have become so good at masking their emotions, because you know, the society expects men to be strong always. Hadi unaambiwa we ni mwanaume, mbona unalia?
Kufa kama mwanaume. Kufa. In fact, die. In fact, don't live, die.
So you know, men actually, from as young as like small boys, they grow up with this notion that you're not supposed to express your emotions. It's not allowed.
Or say how you feel it. In short, say it like you mean it. You're not supposed to say it like you mean it. Choreograph it and gel it down and pose it.
And you know, the funny thing, if we actually look at the population, most men are actually traumatized, but they have never dealt with it. So you find most of them acting out, and people don't understand. Because a man will pile it, bottle it up, and then when they explode, and then the world will judge the man. Like, mbona uliua your wife? Why did you do this to this lady? Why did you do this to your children? But all along,
why did you ghost So that is manifestation.
That is manifestation if it's not handled. Because what we usually say, whenever you don't handle something that is eating you up from the inside, it will eventually flow over and
spills over to other facets of life.
So there will be maladaptive behaviors that will come from it
You said
eventually.
Maladaptive.
Yes. So these behaviors are things that would have been prevented if this thing was handled from the onset.
Right. But then, are there like potential reminders? Because even judging from my personal experience, even losing my dad, because I lost my dad in a traumatic way. He was abducted, tortured, died. Yeah. There's usually, sometimes you're watching news and you hear somebody has been abducted and tortured. Yeah, and it exactly takes you to the very, very first day the first news was brought to you that dad disappeared and found dead, you know. So I take that as trigger. So whenever, but right now I'm easy with watching stories because we're also coming from a background of abductions, but I can relate to how the families are feeling, to have the firstborn child, second mother, daughter, grandma. Like I can literally see the whole family reacting to our son was abducted, our mom was abducted, my brother was abducted. So I understand that for me as triggers. But now for a person who's gone through, let's say verbal abuse. Maybe let's focus on the man. Yeah. For a man who dealt with verbal abuse, maybe from the father and the mother, and maybe how do you heal this man to a point that maybe they don't act out, because you've called it maladaptive behaviors, so that it doesn't spill over in his other facets of his personal life and even others, because as a man you're expected to build a family, maintain it, because you're a guardian of this family. So when you're spilling your issues over to them, it's like you're transferring another trauma to them.
First of all, I'm sorry for your loss. I know grief is hard. There's nothing I can say to ease that. But moving on to the verbal abuse, I think actually most men are not exactly what they would have been. Okay, for most men that have gone through verbal abuse, they are not exactly where or what fully they were meant to be because of that. And in case they just suppressed it and they did not talk about it, it eventually affects who they become as men. And that's why sometimes you'll see, even for a man who went through that, after becoming a father, he will do the same. And that's what you are saying about like it spilling over to other people and they become victims of whatever they did not cause. So if as a man, because you know, men have a huge role to play in society, in families, you know. A man is a leader. Right. So when the leader is hurt or is broken in any way, there'll be something amiss, even in the society. And that's why you find some men don't know how to be expressive, even in terms of love towards their children, because of whatever they went through.
Or even the wife.
Yeah, or even the wife. Because actually, I've sat down with some women and they usually complain, my husband does not know how to express love. Like, you might even think this person is emotionless, but the truth of the matter is they went through something.
Yeah, they use the word stoic.
Yeah.
We are stoics, we don't show anything. They're just there. You know.
So you are in that.
No. I'm saying because I've come across memes as well, and I had Gen Z friends who say, "Sisi ni stoics. We don't share, we don't express, we just act, and that's it. Fine." You know? Yeah,
and you know, for most people, they actually mask whatever they went through with that personality of a stoic. I don't care, you know.
I can't say it. I can't tell you my problems.
And I've seen on TikTok, Pia, there's a trend going around of nonchalant men. You know, like they don't care, they don't show any emotions. So I think it's important for even parents bringing up young children to be very keen on how they treat these children from a young age, from a tender age, because however they are treated then will show in their adulthood. It will be so evident.
Now, borrowing from that, is it possible for a person to, I don't know, because we say emotional damage, yeah? Is emotional damage part of it? But I understand when you go through any kind of painful experience, it affects your emotions. It must, yeah, because when it breaks your mental, your emotional well-being is affected. But now for a person as well who's coming from verbal abuse, which other one? Most that happens in households, even physical abuse. You are, maybe as a firstborn, you are the ones who was always on the spotlight. Yeah, like you are blamed for things going wrong. Yeah, there's, I think there's a confession I was watching where this chick was saying she wants to make everyone feel comfortable. When they're not comfortable, she believes she is responsible for that because she grew up fixing her step siblings and her own siblings, and if she wouldn't, she'd be blamed for it and she'd be beaten and, you know, humiliated. So is it possible for a person to be permanently damaged to a point where, you know, healing is just a story, or maybe as they're healing they continue to ail as they're healing and ailing at the same time, but yet they're still on the road to, you know, healing?
Personally, I would love to believe there is no person that is too broken beyond repair. Because if that was the case, then there will be no need to encourage people to seek therapy. So my personal belief is, as long as you are willing to get help, there is a point you will come to full wholeness, to, you know, fully becoming whole. Because that is the only hope we sell to our clients. So I believe, okay, there's this aspect of all of us having gone through some experiences that have affected each of us emotionally. That's the emotional damage that's usually there. But, you know, for people to seek therapy, it means it was not just a minor thing. It was something that really affected them beyond the normal person, like beyond the average person. So I think therapy works. Therapy works. It might not be easy, it might not be as fast as you want, but eventually you'll get there. Now,
what happens in therapy though? Because we talk about, oh, I want to see a therapist, or I want to see a counselor. A person who is approaching you for help, what is the first conversation you're having with them as a professional? Are you hearing from them first, or who is introducing? But of course, it's the patient seeks doctor service. The doctor does not seek the patient, but yeah, it can be vice versa.
So actually, when I was growing up, you know, I never really had the chance of interacting with a professional therapist. And I know so many people are actually there and they're like, what happens in therapy? I want to seek help. I want to get to see a therapist, but what goes on in the therapy room? Because I think there are also a lot of misconceptions and myths about therapy. But I think the major thing when a client comes, the first thing is to make them comfortable with me as a therapist, so that from there they can share with me why they have come. And then I can pick from whatever they are sharing the problems we'll need to tackle. Because, you know, sometimes a person might come with a symptom of the disease, and that is what they are presenting, because they are not able to really point out that this is what happened. So while they are sharing the triggers and maybe whatever symptoms they have been going through, I'm able to diagnose and really tell out, this is what we'll be dealing with.
But then how do you make them comfortable? Because I'm believing you said the issue of molestation. A man comes to seek help. So how do you make them open up? Because I believe it can be, you know, any man who opens up about molestation is a really confident man. You know, it's like they are on the other side of, I need help and there's no any other way. Like it's either help or I'm out. How do you delve into this person's life and dissect it until to a point they're able to confess this? Because I believe there must be all those meandering around the corners as well, because of the fear of, who is this person? I believe the issue of trust comes into play.
For sure. I think as a therapist, I've learned to also Be vulnerable with my clients regarding my own life, the experiences I've gone through. Because actually a person can't open up to you if you are not also opening up a part of yourself to them.
Yeah.
So I think it goes to it. So for my clients to become comfortable, they have to see that I'm not this strong,
superficial professional.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, Sankwa, so what are you suffering from?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So you find a point of connection.
Yeah,
and
so
strike it. Yeah.
exactly. They have to meet my human parts. Yes, and connect to it, because that's the only way we actually get them to open up. Yeah.
Now, what is the healing process now? Now, how do you start giving help, and what sort of help do you give to this client who's opening up about the issue?
I think it depends with individuals, because actually no person, like no two people are the same. They might be going through the same thing, but will not approach it in the same way.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it really depends on different needs a person may have, because I believe even when it comes to the experiences, they can't be the same. So I usually look at it from what does this particular client need, which approach can I apply in handling his needs, where can I meet him, you know? Because there are so many different models and approaches we have.
For trauma. Maybe you can talk about the most common visits you've had. Most of the clients, where do they hail from? Maybe it's a common general societal issue that you handle on a day-to-day basis, or consistently or continuously. And how do you help them through that in terms of now maybe traumatic experiences?
Okay. You mentioned the issue of grief. Actually, most of my clients, they come to me with issues of grief. And probably they lost their loved one maybe during their childhood or even in their adulthood, and they're having a hard time moving past that, because what happens is usually in the case of grief, most people are usually advised to just move on, you know, or actually in the initial stages of the loss, a person will have the support, like friends will be calling, visiting, but as time goes, people move on and they forget, and you are left there with the loss, grieving, and it's usually hard, because sometimes a person will hear things like, you are taking too long to move on. This thing happened a long time ago. Like, will we keep on going back to it? You know?
Men don't cry.
Yeah.
This is a funeral, but men are not crying.
Yeah.
It's only women who are meant to cry.
So you see what happens, this person ends up suppressing this
the trauma
and repressing it. And then with time, one day you wake up and you realize you're not okay actually. You have not been okay, you have just been overlooking the issue. And that's when most people come, because I think grief is the major traumatic experience most people go through generally. So when a person comes and they are grieving from maybe a loved one, a spouse or a family member, I usually give them time to speak about it, because you know, probably they are coming in and they have not had a platform to really vent and maybe express themselves, or how this has affected them since this happened, because it's not easy for most people who are not professionals to actually understand. Okay, they might try, and they do try, Cindy. Our families try to understand us, our friends try, but the patience that is needed, it might lack at some point. So for me, it's giving them a listening ear, making them know that it's okay to feel whatever they feel. Because in therapy, we actually tell people, no emotion is a wrong emotion. Every emotion, it's okay to feel. And it's okay to allow yourself to go through the emotions. So we allow people to just go through the emotions, even if it will take 2 to 3 sessions and we are still going through the emotions of whatever. And then from there, we start working with them, from helping them to come out of denial. Because sometimes,
How do you come out of denial?
It's
'Cause even
hard.
denial, it can be, you know, somebody said, I think they said the Nile is a river in Egypt, but they use it in some other places, So how do you bounce out of denial? Because even denial can be from a friendship, it could be even in the workplace, grief as well, or accepting something that has literally happened, like it has happened, but you are caught between a rock and a hard place, whether to accept the reality of it, or you're still stuck at that freezing point where you are like, I just can't believe it happened, or you're looking for a better day in this incident,
So I think because grief involves, as you have mentioned, loss of friendships, loss of work, not just a person literally dying, but you losing something that was really dear to you. So usually when a person is in denial, we allow them to actually be in that state for a while, you know, because sometimes a person is still in shock. And so they are finding it hard to accept that this thing has happened. Probably you poured a lot of yourself into a relationship, and then it doesn't work out. And you come when you are in a state of denial, like this has not happened. You know, so I think it's about eventually just allowing the person to be there, but helping them walk through it so that they can come from that place of shock and denial. Just gradually, yes.
We are actually running into time of another segment, but maybe for 2 minutes, let's tackle anger, because I believe we can have maybe a part 2 where we can now go to the nitty-gritties of other types of therapy and how you can help people. For I don't know if anger issues or anger is a problem that needs to be managed in therapy. But then I'm also asking, because I've also met people and read stories, they're asking, what is the root cause of your anger? You remember during the Gen Z protest, all the banners were rage and anger, rage, courage, these are people's normal lives emotions here. So for a person who you'd say maybe their anger is borderline and it's affecting their personality, how they react to incidences or experiences, how they respond to people, how do you trace the root cause to a point that they're able to heal from it? I believe that's around triggers.
Yeah, it is. So first of all, you've asked if anger is something that needs to be handled. It does, because some people are actually, they get angry and they end up doing uncalled for things.
The worst, they do the worst.
Yeah, because actually some people have really ruined great things in their lives because of anger that they did not manage. So I think it's important when you realize you are having issues with anger, you seek help in a therapy room. And you have also asked how? How
do you help?
How do we help?
Yes. Addressing the root cause of anger.
So I think the first thing is usually like helping the person to identify the first time they had an anger outburst and like the implication it's had maybe on their relations or work, and then from
there. Or even
there,
themselves.
Yes, or even themselves.
Because people who self-harm.
Exactly. There are people who actually self-harm due to anger. So it's actually tracing the first incident that happened, and then from there you can actually trace what really, because there must have been something that really triggered the first, and then from there you can help them work out how to now deal with issues similar to that one, or even similar to the experiences they have had prior them coming to therapy, and now how to deal with them more effectively, because it's actually just helping a person learn to manage the anger, because you can be angry and you don't hurt anyone, you can be angry and you don't harm yourself, you can be angry and you don't end up ruining things in your life. So it's actually working with a person through that journey up to a point where one day they actually come to realize, kumbe I'm angry and I did not do something you know.
Or you're having that self-awareness that, you know what, when this and this happens, or when I witness this, or when I encounter such and such, I feel angry, and this is how I regulate
react.
myself,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And lastly, maybe tantrums, before you tell us how we can find your social media as we exit. People that, I say, do you still call them patients, or let's just use the word people that throw stunts, or let's just say tantrums. Something happened to them, either they disagreed with someone at home, or even maybe years ago, but whenever they meet a person who reminds them of such, there's usually some certain behaviors that crop up, like maybe they shut down, others freeze, others become gloomy, others have a grinning look on their faces. Yeah, and I believe it happens to both, you know, even children, young adults, and fully blown adults. Like you start putting up stunts, or you change your body language. Siangali huko. I'm stuck here, Charlie. Because it's tantrums. I believe. Yeah. How do you, deal with that?
I think for most people, there must have been something that happened when they were younger.
Yeah.
Their first time actually throwing tantrums, or maybe they used to be neglected. Or they used to be given everything they wanted, you know. Akiuliza mzazi for anything anapewa, you know. And that actually encouraged them. So they knew, if I want something and my parent is not giving me, the only thing I have to do is to throw a tantrum. Yeah, and they will actually give in to whatever I want.
So tantrums are good?
Do we really say that? I think it depends. It depends, because there are actually tantrums that end up being harming or even damaging to a person's even brand, or the way people perceive you. Because imagine if a person sees you throwing tantrums at a supermarket, you know. So I think it depends.
But arguing, we've seen even a young one must argue, like the lady, they're calling her the Lioness of Shah. Was that a tantrum, or was that a normal venting? I don't know if you saw that incident where she stormed the Health Cabinet Secretary's office and she gave them a piece of her mind. That was a whole Netflix movie, a short one.
I know.
If you look at it in a comedic way.
Yeah, I think that was her venting. I don't think really
that was
think
not a tantrum.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's put it to a close. There's a lot to explore with you. Maybe you can have a part 2. Yeah. So maybe tell our viewer where they can get to interact with you in 10 seconds after that.
Sawa. Thank you so much for having me, first of all. So you can find me on Facebook, Faith Muhonja, on Instagram, Therapist Faith Muhonja, and on TikTok, Faith Muhonja. Yes. Can I also share my number?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, my number is 0706712331. Yes, you can book me for sessions.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Faith, for speaking to us. And hopefully we'll have a part 2 where we need to uncover a lot. I know there's a lot to talk about, even addictions, childhood trauma still that now manifests at old age, and plus so many others, including now the Gen Z, since everyone is a Gen Z, especially right now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now let's do this. Let's take a break, and we come back with the next guests who are already right here in the studio. And we are talking about personal self-growth, as well as a question related on our social media. We'll pick up the feedback as we continue. The hashtag is in the morning at Brand Sako 101 and at Y254 channel. Let's take a break. We'll come back in just a bit.